I think it's now time for our TV movie of the week. We post the dozen best films on subscription-free telly on our socials every week. The selection this time around includes The Old Man and the Gun, Midnight Special, Cold War, appropriately enough, and Shoplifters, as well as Shame.
Yes, so Devesh Sood says, that's a good week of films. Devesh, I agree. But I'm still scarred after my last viewing of Shame, one of the scariest non-horror films ever made. 100%. Shame is one of the best films that I never want to see again.
Oh, yeah, no, there's a folder in my DVD back catalogue that I want to pretend doesn't exist. Mark McDonald says, I went to see Upgrade in the cinema. It was an excellent B-movie, entertaining and tongue-in-cheek with good quality stunts and effects.
Lloyd Ellis says The Old Man and the Gun is great. I listen to the wonderful soundtrack on repeat on my phone regularly. Redford is sparkly and charismatic as the ageing bank robber, and Tom Waits and Danny Glover put on top turns as his gangmates. Look out for the clever montage at the end. I'd forgotten about that montage. It is clever. It's great.
Bill Pickard says Midnight Special was enjoyable, but ultimately a bit disappointing as it didn't fulfil the direction or promise of the earlier scenes.
And Paul says Cold War would be my choice. At 89 minutes, it packs so much in, from the Polish communist buildings to smoky Parisian jazz bars. Beautiful music, and every frame is a piece of art. Joanna Kulig is formidable as a chaotic Zula. Best film of the last decade.
Punchy words, Paul. I love it.
Yeah, now I wouldn't go quite as far as Paul, but for me, I think from a very strong selection, it's Cold War.
I'm going to go for The Old Man and the Gun, if only because of, again, that cast list. Casey Affleck, Danny Glover mentioned earlier, Tom Waits as well, Sissy Spacek, Elizabeth Moss, Isaiah Whitlock Jr., John David Washington is in this movie, and I think David Lowery remains a one to watch as a director. Ghost Story, Pete's Dragon, Ain't Them Bodies Saints, The Green Knight, delayed here in the UK, and currently he's working on Peter Pan and Wendy, with Jude Law as Hook, by the way, and we'll have more on a different Wendy later. But anyway, I'm going for Old Man and the Gun. If you haven't seen it, it is a treat.
Now, how about the other side? So bad it's bad.
Right. So, on that note, the 4 worst movies on TV next week might be I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, Taken 2, Father of the Bride Part 2, or Red Sparrow, which Robbie once called suspense-free.
So now from someone who's written their name RALB, I'm going to go for Ralb. Red Sparrow isn't a patch on the source material, but it's far from terrible. I'd argue all 4 movies on this week's list have some merits, but Taken 2 probably just edges out I Still Know for the win.
We've got an exclamation mark coming from Mike. Red Sparrow. Boing. The other movies are bad, but that commits the worst sin of all by offering a decent premise, but utterly failing to deliver.
James Atterbury says has to be Taken 2. They literally said, will they even notice if we copy the Taken plot and set it somewhere else? They decided the answer was, yes we can, and it didn't end well.
And finally, James T with I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, purely for the Ben's son, invert commas, twist.
That was such a fist-chomping moment.
Yeah, please, just everybody in the room take an extra deep gulp of air, because that just happened.
I have to say, I've warmed slightly to Red Sparrow since I saw it, and then again slightly more since I saw Black Widow. Father of the Bride Part 2, can't be mad at that. It was the first film I saw at the cinema on a sort of date. I think, believe it. It has to. I think for me it has to be Taken 2. And the only reason I hesitated over that was because it's not as bad as Taken 3. But it's still terrible.
It's like the remnants, the stink, the infinite cutting for somebody climbing a fence of that film. It's kind of soured the mediocrity, and I use that as a compliment here, of Taken 2. A film where its best scene is Liam Neeson telling his daughter how to do some echolocation maths homework with a map, a pen, a grenade, and a phone. Yeah, it's a motion picture, and it's not a very good one.